So up to this point, we've learned how to select things with JavaScript. We can select particular elements. And we also just learned how to add a class after the fact. So we can predefine a class here, like red. Nothing in here has that class, but we can add it after the fact with JavaScript down here. And that's just a way of adding some colors and CSS and things like that with JavaScript. And that's all fine, but we're not seeing interactions. We see all those changes after we refresh the browser. And that's not quite as exciting. So let's add interactions. The way we do that is with this concept of events. JavaScript has this concept of events that allows us to track all kinds of events. A click, when you type something on your keyboard, even when you let go of the key from the keyboard and your finger comes off the key. It's very granular. You can track anything, a scroll, pretty much any interaction that happens with a browser and a mouse or a keyboard. And so you can look at this event list here by going to their DOM events page, and you can see all the different kinds of things you can do. On click, key up, there's blur. So that's when you take focus off of, say, like a form field. On focus is clicking onto a form field. And you can actually click on these and check out some examples, right? So all kinds of different things. This adds the color, background color yellow when you focus on this particular form field, as you can see here. And that's what focus is when you click on it. Okay, so those are there's a very large list of events, and those are just some of the ones you can do. Now, let's see this in action. The way we can add an event to a particular element is using this special function or a method called add event listener. Okay, so let's try that. We've selected this H1 here. And just for fun, we'll try a different selector just to refresh. We can do query selector. Okay, and so now we can just select with CSS as opposed to the actual ID that we're using with get element by ID. So we'll do just H1. And that would select the first H1 in the document. Remember, if we query selector all, that would give us an array of all of the H1s on the page. And just as a side note, typically you should only have one H1 per HTML document. That's just a good practice. Okay, so anyway, we got query selector here, and we're selecting this H1. Just to confirm that, if I refresh, I go here, we've got this variable H. If I hit H, it knows what I'm talking about. I'm referring to this H1 here. So what we're going to do now is add an event listener to H. We can do that by doing h.add event listener. And this is a special JavaScript method. And what we'll do is this method takes two parameters. Remember, you can pass things in to a method so that we can use them inside. The first one is, what is the event? Okay, let's just say it's a click event. Okay, so we click on the H and we want something to happen. The second parameter is that action. What actually happens to it when we click? And in this case, why don't we add this class to this H1? So when we click on this H1 in the document here, this class will kind of get attached to it. You could imagine it'll do something like this. It'll inject this actual class into it. And that's a clean way to do it. We can actually add predefined CSS to our document after it's been loaded just by using JavaScript here. So let's try that. We need to come up with a function. Let's make one up. We'll just say add red class. Okay, so that's the function that's going to happen. We call this a callback. Okay, so what we mean here is we're adding this method, add event listener, and it's watching for, okay, listening is just the same thing as kind of watching. It's like keep an eye out. We're telling this object here, the H1, keep an eye out for any clicks. Okay, and if someone clicks on you, we want to run this function. So now we need to actually create this function. Let's add our semicolon here. And let's create the function. We'll write it above it so that, kind of following your eyes down, it makes sense. So we'll say var add red class. Okay, and then we set that to a function. And we'll say, okay, inside this function, we can do something like this. We'll say this. Okay, let's start out like this. We'll do h dot class name. So this will retrieve any classes that are on this h1. In this case, there are none. What we'll do is we'll set it equal to itself so that if there were any class names there, we're not losing them. We're setting them equal to itself. So now we want to concatenate with string concatenation red text. Okay, so all we're doing is adding this class. We're injecting it into here with this function, and we're calling this function or invoking it right here after we click on it. Okay, so that's what's going on here. There's a lot going on if you're new to this, but you'll get the hang of it pretty soon if you just practice this a few times. Okay, so now when I hit save and I refresh, we can get the reaction, the interaction, by clicking. And there you go. Just by clicking, we were able to change it. So that's kind of, a very basic example of how you can start to add interactions. Going back to this Apple example again, if you look at something like this, where you see something like, just by simply scrolling a page, we're able to do so much. We're zooming a picture out. We're fading in this text here. There's a lot going on. Those are all just reacting to this scroll event that my mouse is doing on the right here. So you can start to kind of see how you can build off of this very basic concept. You can add a class. You can do other things just by adding this event listener here and then telling it what to do in the second parameter, the callback. So we're telling the event listener to watch out for clicks, and then we're telling it, that we should run this function which we predefined here when we click on it. So likewise, we could look at that event list and do other things like, let's try on mouse over. So something like that. Let's refresh. And now when I mouse over it, it should work. Let's try without the on. I think you're supposed to do it without the on there. And there we go. When I hover over it, you're seeing that it is, changing its color just simply by hovering over it. And something cool, just as a side note, that you can learn is with CSS, you can do this transition property. And let's just say 5 seconds, okay? And what that'll do is when I refresh the page and hover, it'll take 5 seconds for it to kind of transition into whatever the rules are there. In this case, color red. We could also do something like this just for fun. We'll say font size, set it to 300 pixels. Okay, so refresh. Now when I hover over the H1, the font size jumps to 300 pixels, and see it kind of smoothly transitions over like that. So that's something to really play with and have fun with, is just how you can add a class that you predefine here and inject it into the actual document with JavaScript just by creating these event listeners. So again, there's a lot going on here, but you can build from this and really make some really cool interactions with JavaScript.